Gentlemen, welcome to the first ever edition of the Tighe Up, the show where I take you through a partial journey of my independent wrestling career, interviewing guys I worked with along the way. Tonight's a very special first guest. He's a good friend and the person who is responsible for breaking me into the independent wrestling business. He successfully ran as an independent promotion, first known as HPW, then transitioned into CSW. He's formerly known as Mr. Hardcore, but now uses the name Jon Ryker. Mr. Ryker, how are you doing this evening? That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So over here on my left, well, stage right, you're going to see a match in just a couple of minutes that you'll see yourself, Mr. Hardcore Jon Ryker, versus Lane Smart in a violent barbed wire match. But before that comes on, why don't you let everybody know how you got started, how long you've been wrestling, and if you're still active, you know, tell us about your journey in pro wrestling.
I started November 15th, 1989, Panama City, Florida. 16 years old. I've been doing it 31 years, almost 31 years now, and I'm still active. I just haven't had a match in probably about 8 months with Corona and then some health issues at the end of last year. It's kept me out of the ring a little bit, but I am down 70 pounds now from where I was at this time last year, and I'm looking to get back in the ring, and hopefully when all this stuff's over with, I can get CSW up and going again.
That sounds awesome. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So you traveled up and down the East Coast, right, when you first started? Tell us.
East Coast, Southeast. Man, there was a time from summer of 96 to fall of 97, we wrestled with from New York down to Miami and back, and everywhere in between.
That's crazy. So tell us about the experiences. What's some of the craziest things you saw on the road? Some of your favorite matches during that time?
Let's see. Believe it or not, I wasn't always into the hardcore stuff. That's something that come along by an accident, actually. I was more into the technical aspect. I know that hardcore is in the moniker, but I can actually chain wrestle, believe it or not. Well, actually, you know this.
I do know this.
I taught you how to chain. But I get that. Probably the craziest stuff, man. This is a PG-13 show. I can't really get into the stuff that I've seen, the real wild stuff. Just say that I've seen a lot of marriages end and a lot of relationships end because of certain things out on the road.
Right, right. So were you trained by anybody notable?
No, I was trained by a guy named Charles French here in Panama City back in '89. He wrestled under the name Half-Breed. He worked for a guy named Bill Posey. Had a promotion here locally that ran. They ran semi-monthly, bi-weekly for a while, and then it was just one of these outlaw shows where they just things would. If they had the money, they ran. If they didn't, they didn't run. That's just the way it was. And, you had to train. We trained a good 6 to 8 months before we even allowed to get in the ring the first time. You had to learn moves on the ground before you graduated even getting in the ring to take bumps and stuff in the ring.
And things have changed, definitely. So we'll talk about that for just a moment. Let's take a quick break. I want to thank Nice Uncle for the follow, Zazabu for your raid, and CMC Dermont 102. Hello from beautiful Orlando. But Jon Ryker, you're from you're filming from Panama City tonight, right?
I am.
All right. So wrestling's changed in that aspect as far as people getting into the ring too early. What's your take on that? Do you think people are being rushed into the business, or?
Yeah, I think that too many guys are watching on TV and thinking, I can do that, and they get a buddy or somebody to get some money together and they buy a ring, and the next thing you know, there's another promotion, there's another handful of workers, and people are getting hurt. I think they should, really take their time.
And that really changed in the 90s, I think, when backyard wrestling got very popular. What was your take on backyard wrestling in that time?
There were some guys that could do it. I mean, that had the fundamentals and just chose to do that stuff. just the straight out craziness of coming off roofs and crap like that. I was
Right.
never a fan. Just the straight up, like, and this comes from a guy that's done a lot of violent matches, but there's a time and a place for everything, and hitting somebody over the head with a board coming off a 15-foot roof is not, just something that you shouldn't be doing on a regular basis at all.
Agreed. So you said you accidentally fell into hardcore wrestling. You want to tell us how that actually happened?
I was actually in a match in Chipley, Florida. This is probably 94, 95. And a guy had actually hit me with a chain unraveled and split my head open. And I was, wow, I kind of freaked out that I was actually bleeding. And, then the promoter asked me to do a blow-off match or an end-of-feud match with the guy and get color, bleeding the match.
Okay.
And I said I'd never do it, but then, he offered me more money to do it, so I did it. And it became easy to me after that. It's like, okay, it's not too bad. The way the crowd reacted, just like, wow. Couldn't believe how much they, really got into the match even more.
So that was a big adrenaline rush for you?
Yeah, it was that, and you had a lot of the old timers though were giving you crap about, you guys, that's all you can do is just bleed to get it, to get the reaction and everything. Not necessarily. We always told a story with it. I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but we had to work our way into it. I mean, there was times we did it for the sake of doing it that shouldn't have been done, but that's a growing process. It's like anything in life, when you're a baby and you walk, you're gonna stumble and fall. You get up till you learn how to walk the correct way.
But there in the late 90s, that's when ECW got very popular, and that kind of style of wrestling really catapulted and promotions across the United States, and Japan was doing it long before then. And that's kind of, how it got brought over here was their death matches. Do you think that was some of the reason that you were able to start traveling up the East Coast doing your gimmick?
I do a lot of FMW related stuff. People wanted that, and a lot of their guys wouldn't do that style of stuff unless you were an ECW or people would deem you as, well, you're not that good of a wrestler. We'll bring you in to do this version of it. Well, I don't subscribe to that I can't work. I can wrestle, work, whatever you want to call it. I use the hardcore element to tell stories, and that's what made my career, like I never strived to be in WCW and WWE. I never strived to make it. I proved a point by getting in the ring to begin with. I was always told I'd never be able to do it. I was laughed at for wanting to do it. And so every time I went out, I had that in the back of my mind that I wanted to prove a point to all my naysayers, my doubters.
So we see the action being started over on the other monitor, the barbed wire. This was a match with you and CSW against Lane Smart. You want to talk about Lane Smart at all?
Oh, man. He's definitely the epitome of a beast. This match right here probably took a couple years off my life. Just the scars and stuff. Like you can see, as my shirt's ripped on the back right there. I was going to get in the ring, and the barbed wire actually caught my shirt and snagged it, and put a 3-inch gash in my back.
So for people that think wrestling's fake, right? Explain the thought process of putting yourself in a match like this.
Well, it's definitely a mindset to get into. I couldn't just walk out my front door right now and go outside and start hitting myself with light tubes and getting dumped on thumbtacks and stuff. It's definitely something that I have to psych myself up for. You've seen the pre-match ritual as far as behind the curtain with the bottles of water over the head and standing there and just meditating, whatever you want to call it, getting amped up and ready to go, and just getting in my own head and just turning that switch, going from James Rimmer to Jon Ryker, as I walk through the curtain.
So there's stories about Mankind having to sleep in the boiler room and sleep underneath the wrestling ring to kind of get himself into that character of Mankind. Anything like you for that in the beginning, before you got used to doing these types of matches, but in the very beginning, just to get in that kind of mindset?
To get in that kind of mindset, I just have to put myself in a place of just like, I can't look at anybody or anything out there as like, I don't see any, like if I had family in the crowd or friends in the crowd, I don't see anything. I don't see anybody but the objective of getting in the ring and doing that match. Because if I do, then I'll feel everything, and then I won't want to go through with it because I hate pain. I really do. I don't enjoy pain at all. I just have to flip the switch inside myself. I have to make myself really angry, upset to get in that mindset and do those type matches.
I'm watching you with a barbed wire bat, or is that thumbtack? Oh, right between the legs.
With thumbtacks glued to it.
Oh.
Lane actually brought that himself and got it used on himself. Normally, that's the one thing. I try not to bring too much stuff that I know would end up implement my doom.
Yeah, it can always backfire on you, right?
Oh, yeah. Multiple times.
So we met back in, I believe it was 93, 94?
98.
98, yes. Sorry.
98.
I was working at Oyster Bar there in Panama City as a busboy, and you were working as a cook. So I found out you were a pro wrestler. That was the boom area of wrestling, right? Like Monday Night Wars were going on. What was your initial reaction to this, 14, 15-year-old kid coming to you and like, oh my God, you're a pro wrestler. Like, I've always wanted to get involved. What was your initial reaction on that?
My initial reaction was like, well, this kid's impressionable, like I don't want to, I started young too. I started at 16. I had to get my mom's permission. I actually had to get permission slip from my mom to start training. So, and I remember telling you that, man, when you get a little older, come back and talk to me, and we'll see about putting you in, seeing if you really want to do this or not. I said, because it's not all glitz and glamour. It's not all, making big money and stuff. Because obviously I was working at an oyster bar and, still wrestling sometimes 4 days a week.
I did get to ride with you to Defuniac Springs and watch you wrestle a match against Mike Metal. And in that match, you powerbombed Mike Metal and onto a chair and knocked him out completely. What's like when something like that happens? What's your initial? I mean, you're not out there to hurt the guy. You're out there to win the match, but you feel bad, right? When you knock somebody out cold, right?
Oh, of course. And that's just one of those things where, the chair didn't cooperate. That's when people say it's fake. Well, you can't fake going through a chair. You can't fake being slammed on the ground. You can't fake, being dropped on anything. You don't go to a movie and yell at the movie that it's fake, even though the movie's not technically real. So, like wrestling, you can't say, well, that's fake.
Sure. So you told me I had to get older. About the age of 16, I met a group of guys that were actually training under you. Bombs the Loco, Lucha Dudley, and Cameron Frost. And I was able to fall back in, so it kind of worked out, and I started training with you. What was your initial reaction when I first started training with you?
When I seen after our reintroduction to each other, and I could see that the passion was there, I always knew you had something there that you really wanted to do it. I mean, you would bounce all these wild ideas off me and like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? I'm like, well, slow down. Let's get you an identity. Let's get you, let's finish getting you the fundamentals first, and then let's work on the other stuff later.
Sure. So then I had some personal issues.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for the follow, C. Dermont. I had some personal issues. I had to go move to Texas, help my mom come back to Florida. By the time I got back, you had a falling out with some of those other guys, and I didn't know what was going on, but I just kind of stuck with those guys. I ended up going to train with Sequel the Wild Samoan after that, and making my actual in-ring debut with XW2000. Later, I found out Bombs the Loco was coming back to wrestle for HPW. I got back in touch with you. I was like, yeah, I want to come back too. What was your reaction about that? I know we've talked about this in the past.
I'd always wanted you to come back. I didn't know. I didn't know you were back until after you had called me and asked me about coming back. When those guys had actually come back, no one was talking to me at that time. So, we just, man, I actually happy to have you back because I just seen a lot in you. I mean, if you look at the success you had in any company that I've owned, as far as like whatever letters I've used, you've been my champion in every one of them. There's a reason for that. You're the youngest heavyweight champion I ever had.
That's correct. And we're actually about to get into that.
Okay,
right before that happened, though, I started traveling with you a little bit. You wanted to bring me around, get me into some other promotions, get me some more experience, which by the way, thank you for that, because I mean, without the experience in pro wrestling, you're never gonna get any better. Like, it's one of those things, once you kind of learn how to do it, you just have to keep doing it or you're not gonna get better. So I greatly appreciate you taking me under your wing and letting me travel with you. We went to Alabama and we had a match in SPW. And if you ever look closely at me, not you per se, but anybody watching, there's a scar on my forehead it's very faded now. I mean, this was, I don't even know how many years ago.
This was almost 18 years ago.
18 years ago. So it's faded a lot. But there was a match we had, and I was going through this hardcore phase with you. And there was a barbed wire bat, and I got busted open the hard way. Blood was literally dripping out of my head like somebody turned on a faucet in the winter to make sure their pipes didn't freeze. What was your reaction when you saw the amount of blood that I was losing?
First and foremost, man, I felt terrible, because it's something I inflicted first. Secondly, I'm like, we just got to finish this match, and I got to get him to the back and get him taken care of. That was the first things that went through my mind. It was shock. It's like, oh my goodness, like I've seen some stuff, and but this is somebody that I really cared about and looked at like a little brother, So it just really, really hit home with me. It's like, yeah, we got to finish this match and get to the back.
Yeah. So we ended extremely quick. We got to the back. Your wife at the time actually bandaged me up, and we went back out there later and we wrestled again, and you put me over. What was the reasoning for that?
Well, if you beat everybody and you never build anybody up, then what have you accomplished? Because eventually we're all going to lose to Father Time.
Right.
Eventually we're all either going to get too old to do it or get too hurt to do it. And there's got to be somebody else there to continue and carry that torch. So, that's what I was looking at, was your ascension, as far as like, yeah, I could just beat you everywhere we went. But if I did that, then what's left because what I had planned in my mind, as far as back in my own company, what I wanted to do with you. So I knew that I need to build you up to make you, make people want to use you and want to see you around the area.
Sure. And that makes sense. I just saw a clip of well, first of all, there's probably about 50 to 100 thumbtacks in the back of Lane Smart's back right now. And he just lit his hand on fire and chopped you with that. Let's talk about fire a little bit. What does fire feel like when you're going through a flaming table or...
Does not feel good. It's definitely something like right here. That's actually a glove with thumbtacks on it sticking out of it. And I actually hurt my own hand chopping him with thumbtacks as well in my hand.
Oh, and the ref just got hit. Down Tiny went.
Yeah.
That was Tiny, right? Yeah.
It was. That was Ron. Yeah, he's about 11 inches shorter now.
So fast forward a bit, I was the youngest HPW heavyweight champion, your promotion at the time, beating Spade. Rest in peace for him, by the way. As the promoter of the company, what did you see in me that you wouldn't have put that much stock in carrying the company? And talk about Katie Strays and Spade, guys that you grew up, running the roads with in the business.
Well, those guys and I actually did a faction called the Thug World Order. Frank Katie Strays had broke in. He did a Samoan thing where he looked I mean, he looked the part. Him and Desmond both, Spade, really looked the part. And when it was time to like move forward to go, we were trying to modernize our gimmicks. Like we had all done a mask gimmick where we were the Masters of Mayhem. He was Simone Assassin, I was Mr. X, and I think Spade was actually our manager at the time. He actually wasn't with us. He was still training to wrestle. But as we went along and became the TWO, we all came up with name changes, unmasked and everything, and started running the roads together. And we worked for a promotion called World Pro Wrestling out of Orlando. Jerry Gray ran it. He was a guy who worked in the NWA back in the 80s, and we used to travel. I mean, we'd go to Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, all the way back down South Florida. I mean, that gave me an exposure to a lot of big crowds, and we just, we put a lot of miles on some vehicles and definitely put a lot of miles on our body, learning the ropes with working with guys like, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Jim Neidhart, Brutus Beefcake, Bugsy McGraw, Marty Jannetty actually worked with us a little bit back at that time too. So we got a real lesson with those guys, and just seeing how I knew how those guys previously had done for me, I know I need to do for you. That's why I put you over on Spade, made you the heavyweight champion, at 18 years old. I think it was right around your 18th birthday, as a matter of fact.
It was.
I think it was your birthday present.
And that was extremely scary. During the match, he actually
knocked him out.
Yeah, I knocked him out. That was the first time I ever accidentally, hurt somebody in the ring. And I was still very young, still very green, as we call it in the wrestling business. But it was partial his fault too. He gave me a move, and then my head popped back and hit him in the nose, and then he was going quicker and quicker and quicker. And then he bent down too far, and I came up too hard with the kick, caught him right on the bridge of the nose.
Wasn't that back body drop spot, and you stopped, kicked him in the face?
Yeah. His head was lower than his chest. He caught it straight to the bridge of the nose, and up and down was Spade. And he was a big guy. And
he was 6'4", about at that time, probably about 260.
And then you had a 5'7", 200-pound guy just, knock him out cold. That was very scary for me because I've never dealt with that. And he started seizuring in the ring. I didn't know what to do. I still, even think about it now, it's just very, very unreal how that happened.
Yeah, that was probably one of the scariest moments as far as like, especially being a good friend like that and have both of you out there, and then that happening, and had to break character and come out in the middle of the match like that, and, and get an ambulance involved and everything else. And I'm just glad he was okay.
Right.
Just a short-term thing, that it wasn't like a permanent thing. And I remember you just being really emotional about it. And I remember Frank and I both telling you, man, it's all right. This is one of those things that happen. And I remember when Desmond got better, he even spoke to you and said, look, it happens.
And we wrestled again after that and tore the house down, Man,
you guys made it for it, and pun intended, you guys made it for it in spades.
And that was kind of the beginning of where I didn't kind of want to do hardcore wrestling anymore. And I kind of started to transition away from hardcore. I was looking more to become the definition of technician at that time. And I came to you with the idea of creating the Pride Championship, a lower title. And I think this was probably maybe UHPW or UPW.
It was actually, let's see. It was UPW. We got away from HPW to try to, get away from the stigma of just being nothing but hardcore. Because honestly, that time we only had maybe one, possibly two matches that were truly hardcore. The rest of them were regular wrestling matches, and we try to give you a little bit of everything. But you actually, you and Cameron Frost and those guys actually ushered in the hybrid part of it.
Yeah, so we created the Pride Championship, and then that was pretty much the birth of Team Hybrid. It was myself, Cameron Frost, Scotty and Billy Rays, and then Colby Godwin was starting to come into his own as well. We were starting to have some really good matches, kind of changed the way people thought about the promotion. Was that a good thing for business for you?
Oh, most definitely. People used to say, "Oh, you guys are just the guys that just do nothing but bleed over there and landing thumbtacks and everything." And I'm like, "No, you need to come check us out." I tell you what, I used to make this guarantee to people. I tell you what, if you come to the show and watch the show, and if you don't like it, I'll give you your money back. If you think it's just pure crap, I'll give you your money back.
I remember we did a triple threat.
I never had to fulfill that guarantee.
Nice.
Everybody came up to the end of the show and said, "You know what? I was totally wrong about this place. I judged this place on, I should have been unbiased. And I wasn't. And you know what? I really like coming here, watch the shows here."
I remember a standing room only show. I mean, we packed the place out. It was myself, Cameron Frost versus Colby Godwin in a triple threat double fall. And that was the crowning of, well, it was a double title match. It was the Pride Championship as well as the Heavyweight Championship at the time.
It was 2 falls. First fall was for the Pride title. Second fall was for the Heavyweight title.
Right. And sorry, I got sounds going off my ear. Somebody cheered 25. Somebody wanted to know what was worse, landing on Legos or tacks.
Legos for sure. Tacks, you can they go in, they stay, pop them out later. Those damn Legos, man, you hit those things, it's just like no give at all. It's like, the pain doesn't stop.
And then another person asked how expensive were tickets for these shows. So that kind of changed throughout the years. When you first started HPW, it was back in Chipley, Florida. In what year?
97.
So what were you charging for tickets back in 1997?
We were charging $5 a head.
And that was just general admission, $5 got you into the show.
We didn't separate front row and stuff. We just $5 a head, first come, first serve. You got there early enough, you got the best seats.
And then just recently you ran a reunion show. I didn't get to work that show, but that was back in 18?
No, it was actually, it will be the 19th of this month. Will be 1 year. It was actually last year, August 19th.
And how much were tickets for that show?
$10.
So you're looking at $10 for awesome entertainment. I have always thought that independent wrestling was far better than going to a movie or anything because of the interaction that you can also have. And tickets are typically cheap, even at $15 for some shows per person. You're paying for the experience, not necessarily just a movie. What's it like being in a live crowd for somebody who's never been to a wrestling show?
Well, honestly, outside of being at a WWE or WCW show, I never have really sat in a independent live crowd. I've always been backstage because I'm old school in the belief that you shouldn't be in the crowd, especially if it's a show that you're on or a part of. You don't sit in the crowd. I don't think it's fair to take away from anybody else that's in the ring, that you should stay backstage. But just from that experience of looking through the curtain, if I was watching it through when I've been injured and stuff and watching shows, I can just forget about my problems for a couple of hours, and I can really just get wrapped up in the entertainment if they're telling a story. If they're telling good stories, and each match is a different story and it's a different chapter of a big book.
Right.
That's what I always try to strive for. And, that's something that you and I we've always agreed on as far as that philosophy of putting shows together.
Definitely. And
you can't do it just to do it.
Yeah, you're a distraction if you're out in the crowd during a different match because people are looking at you. They're expecting you to either do something or they want to come and talk to you, get your autograph or anything like that. And you're just a major distraction and disrespectful to the guys, really working hard in the ring at the time.
Most definitely, because people don't know if it's part of a story or what, like you just said, and I really frown upon that, and I've had this argument with a lot of guys over the years in Mossy Head and in Chipley, the same argument, I don't think I'm a superstar or nothing. I just think it's very disrespectful to the guys, your peers that are in the ring, to take away from their time.
Looks like Lane Smart's going for a chokeslam. Nope, you reversed it and chokeslam onto a chair to him. At this point in the match, what's going through your head? You've been out there for about 25 minutes or so. What's that like?
I said, besides probably my ass. Right now, man, I'm just trying to make it to the end. I'm just trying to last. I was probably late 30s here, early 40s, maybe. Probably, yeah, no, I was early 40s here. So, cardio is not what it used to be. I'm, back trying to get my cardio and everything back up now. And man, I'll tell you, do 25 minutes of just straight, just going. We don't do a lot of rest spots. There's not a lot of
right.
Not a lot of people think, oh, we're just laying around. Well, no, not really. We're actually letting it sink into what we're doing. And
the thing about ring cardio is you can't train for that on a treadmill or on a bicycle. There's no way to really do that except for just getting in the ring and going.
Most definitely. There's no amount of, you can't run enough laps. You can't do, oh, that's right. The match was already over. This was actually after the match. This was a brawl after the match.
Still going. The bells rang and you guys are still going.
We went with the crowd on this one. We just wanted to give them more. This was a 2-night anniversary show. I'm positive of it.
So moving on, we've definitely we've had times, as most friends do, where we've really butted heads, listening to what others were saying about us, and instead of coming to each other firsthand. I remember one time I walked out on you mid-show because of a call that you made and I didn't agree with, and I really put you in a bind about that. I was young and made some mistakes, and it was stupid of me, but you always brought me back. So I finally
I used to get a lot of flack for that because I always was asked, why you have such a soft spot for Chris? And I'm like, it's because I see he's like a little brother to me. It's like, can you be mad at your little brother for a long time? No. Even when we've been at odds, I've always genuinely loved you like a little brother.
And
no matter what anybody's ever said or, anything, I've always looked at you as like, man, that guy could be, that's my man.
I appreciate that. The feeling's definitely mutual. So 2014 was my last comeback for Culture Shock Wrestling at the time. I came back in the spring of 2014, and I actually, little dig at you, it ruined your fourth CSW heavyweight title reign. You were champion for about 4 minutes, and every time that pops up in the Facebook memories, I got to reshare it.
That was the other thing too. I didn't like, a lot of times people don't know this, but especially in the later years, a lot of the times where I won a belt or won a match was something I didn't set that up. It was actually done. It was done either by a committee or somebody else's call, not mine. So that's why I was happy to have you come out and beat me very quickly.
Yeah, it was definitely a transition champion. We were moving into something totally different. You had the idea to start the stable tradition, a faction that considered myself, Justin Overstreet, Street Bandit, Marcus Gibbs, and Darius Kane. Justin Overstreet was only there for a few shows, but Darius Kane moved over from another faction called the Fist. But what was your thought process behind the tradition, and walk us through the beginning of it and what you saw it as and then what it became?
I always liked stables being at odds. I've always I loved the stuff they did in the mid-90s WWE with the Los Boricuas and the Disciples of Apocalypse and those kind of factions like that, DX and stuff. And I always thought, man, you could have so many in a nation, and you could have so many individual stories within groups too, and then just having that three-way feud that we built into with CSW, like you guys trying to take over CSW while you had the Fist trying to take over CSW, and then you guys fighting each other while trying to take over CSW, and almost canceling each other out at times.
And that was weird too, because the Fist was a heel faction of the bad guys, and then we were definitely the bad guys. But when we were wrestling against the Fist almost became good guys, except when CSW was involved, and then they were kind of neutral. So how does that work? You know, like how do you get in the mindset that that's going to work? Like, is it mostly the talent? Like, what do you think that comes from?
Well, I could put Satan in the ring with you, and you're going to, you know, Satan's going to cheer. And that's just the way it is. You know, everybody loves to hate you no matter what. I mean, for us to take Victor Crew, who was completely hated at one time, and get him cheered like he was, you know, like the biggest babyface ever coming back, working against you just because of who you are. It just, you know, I listen to the crowd. I listen to what I try to put stuff out there that I like to see, but I also listen to what they're saying by listening to them. If they're saying, hey, we want steak, I'm going to give them steak. If they say, hey, we want a hamburger tonight, well, they're going to get a hamburger tonight. You know? And just putting you guys together, and you guys were the more technical wrestlers out of everybody in the promotion. That's why you guys were together, doing the tradition.
Right.
You know, especially yourself and Marcus, and Bandit, you know, he's a good hybrid too.
And you just mentioned, you know, how people love to hate me. You know, that was weird, because there was a time that even I like to I wanted to go face over in CSW, and we just couldn't make it happen. But I always had, you know, cheers after the matches, you know, so it was like they hated me, but they also respected me in that building, and they
that's what I was going to say. I think it was more of just a mutual respect thing for your ability. They hated the character, but they respected the man. They respected what you could do inside those ropes.
So towards the end of the last CSW run, before the reunion show, we ended in what year was the last show?
The last show we ran before the 4-year hiatus was December of 15.
15, and
we had was September of 15, but we actually ran Panama City show. It was right before Christmas of 15, and then the people with the building here had a falling out.
And so it was during that time I wanted to really take over booking and learning that aspect of it. And I always kind of, you know, gave you ideas, and you would let me run with them and whatnot. But I wanted to, you know, book the entire shows from top to bottom. And it was something you were reluctant about at first, but you knew I really wanted to do it. So you kind of eased up and let me do it. So tell me how it was to hand over your baby to somebody else and you know, let them fully control the shows.
Well, it's like anything, you know, whenever you've been in control of something for so long, and, you know, it's not like I have to be like a control freak, but when you're so used to doing so many acts, because every time you would have somebody to say they would help you out, like I'd have assistant bookers and stuff, and then they'd stop showing up, and it's like, crap, what do we have again? I'd have to try to remember. So I just got to where I just did it all myself. And it was really hard to relinquish that control again because of not knowing. You know, the unknown is the biggest thing. You know, I didn't know with your job, you know, and as far as you were living away, you know, that if it was going to cause an issue, what happens if you couldn't make the show? You know, now I got to scramble to try to remember everything you've done. But, you know, I can honestly say I was okay with letting you have the full book.
You seemed a lot less stressed during those shows. I'll tell you that, you know.
Oh, most definitely. If I had somebody else that I knew I could count on, you know, it definitely made my life a lot easier.
So let's talk about the stressful portion of it. You know, what is the day of a show like for you?
Whew. Let's see. Well, it starts about 8 o'clock in the morning. Get up. Check messages, make sure no one's backed out at the last moment on me, which happens quite a bit.
Rewrite the whole show.
Yep. Double check the card that I put together, you know, and we're going to probably change it 3 more times before bell time. It's just the way it is. But then about 10 o'clock, call my ring guy, make sure they're still bringing the ring and going to be there, you know, by noon. So I love getting the show by noon and getting the ring set up. So with everything is doing that build in Mossy Head, it takes a couple hours easily. Set up and just trying to get, getting the mindset of doing a show, making sure that you get enough. Did you bring enough concessions? Did you bring enough change for the door? Did you bring the tickets for the door? Did you, do you have this? Do you have that?
Setting up the sound and making sure that.
Crap! Did I forget the speakers? Did I forget the Panama City? That's actually happened. Had to drive all the way back to get the belts before. Just little things like that. When I got a support group under me. My fiance and my children and everything, but they forget stuff too just as easily. They're caught up in this is going to be a long day, because as well as I do, when you start it that early in the morning and you're going to be out till at least 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, if not later, before you get back home. But yeah, it's definitely most stressful a day, just trying to remember everything. And and if you got guys coming from out of state, it's got that long drive, make sure, hey, they left yet? Are they going to be here on time? Are they going to make it? Or do I need to put them on the card if they can't be here until this time?
People trying to do double shots and
it got to the point where I just started telling guys, what, if it's that big of a deal to you, just go work the other show. I mean, no hard feelings. I'm not mad at you. I just can't keep booking around another show.
Right.
It's just too much to keep up with. And then you get 30 egos you got to deal with.
Let's answer a few questions in chat.
Sure.
Somebody wants to know, what was the worst thing I did with the book and the best?
Oh, let's see. Worst thing you did with the book was probably make me champion for the 4th time. And then come out and beat me 3 minutes later was the best thing.
And the best.
Yeah, that was the best. Anyway, in all honesty, in all seriousness, man, I can't pinpoint one good thing. I mean, you pretty much wrote the whole show at the Den. You pretty much booked that whole show. The Falls Canyon Order match with Metal and myself, your ladder match with Tom, with Soldier and Cali Kid.
Yep.
That was probably one of the best independent ladder matches I've ever seen. That, honestly, I'd say that's probably one of the best ladder matches I've ever seen on any level. I don't care if it was an indie show or not. That actually topped your match with Don Crisis and Milton, and that was a hell of a ladder match there too.
Eat your heart out, Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels.
I mean, that 450 into the cutter was something else.
Yeah. Is it typical for promotions to keep their titles, or do they let champions travel with them?
Independent promotions, it just depends. Like I used to let that happen, but then people wouldn't show up with the belts, so I had to stop that. Like, look, if you want to give me a deposit where I can buy another belt, then sure.
Right.
But we never. There's guys I knew I could trust, and there's guys that I don't know if you're going to be here, next month or not. I'm just going to hold on to the belts just in case I have to do something.
He always made me carry the belt with me because he knew if I had the belt that I was going to be there. There's no way I wasn't going to go and do business when he put a championship on me, and I hated it. I wanted him to those belts are heavy, and it just adds another 10 pounds to your bag, and your bags are heavy enough. So I absolutely hated it, but his bags were 10 pounds lighter, so he didn't care.
That's what I have children for. I have 5 kids.
So what's your current take on professional wrestling today, and how do you think they're doing on the mainstream level as far as COVID-19? You think it's going to be a good or a bad thing when it finally ends?
But finally, it's going to be a great thing. Man, you're going to see some record-setting crowds once everybody gets the all clear that it's okay to have fans back in a full capacity again. My goodness, you're going to see indies on up really do very well. Just getting to that point right now, with well, we both have a mutual friend that runs a promotion in Alabama that he can't run right now because of all their athletic commission there. The mainstream AEW is doing it right. WWE is not doing it right.
Yeah.
AEW is knocking it out of the park. They figured it out with having, some of the workers in the crowd to make a crowd. I mean, WrestleMania was, that was a chore to watch. Not saying it was terrible. I'm just saying it was a chore.
Right.
Yeah. Just if you had NXT guys there watching, would have been awesome. Would have been something that you could have, you really just had some kind of interaction. Just would have made it a lot better. I think Drew McIntyre really got robbed on his big moment. Not having that interaction.
So we released the Bracken. Chris Bracken is here tonight with us.
Hello, Bracken.
He said he doesn't remember Darius Kane being in tradition. I'm pretty sure that was me. So Chris, you were part of the tradition with Justin Overstreet, but Darius Kane came in a few shows later.
He came in actually after you left. That was to replace you.
Yep.
Because we lost.
We lost you and Justin Overstreet. So.
Yep. And we had to take him out of the fist because we had too many people in the fist, not enough in tradition.
Right.
We had to kind of even it out a little bit.
David Senior also says hello. He's here. He's going to be a guest later on this season. Good to see you.
Senior, one of my favorite guys to be just to be around in general, man. Chris Bracken too. Chris Bracken, that guy would do anything you ever asked him to do. I mean, he never gave me any crap. He was always so just humble and just ready to go out there and work at any time. And Senior, same way. You couldn't ask for a better guy. Like, he reffed that whole anniversary show last year. About killed him, but he did it. Thank God he was there to help us out.
Right. So what do you think about wrestling on the Gulf Coast right now? Is it doing it right? Is it doing it wrong?
I think it sucks.
Okay.
It truly sucks right now.
Care to elaborate?
I mean, instead of people trying to work together, everybody's out for themselves, and now no one's running. I think you got shit stain in Pensacola, Tiny Tiswell, but that's not a promotion. That's not hey, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have went there. But I just think guys could, get it together and work together, and we could have a good area again. We had a good area at one time. We had a great area at one time. But egos get in the way like anything else in life and in wrestling, and it ruined it for everybody.
And as far as egos, how's it like trying to put a show together and then you have people butting heads with you about, hey, I don't want to work with this guy, or I don't want to put this guy over,
I'm a champ elsewhere, and man, I can't, and I'm going to be doing an angle with him, 6 months from now, but I can't wrestle in the night. Well, man, you can do it as a face on face, shake hands after the match. Well, I can't do that. Well, all right. It's very frustrating. It's like, it's not like I'm asking you to go out there and kill the guy. I'm not asking you to go out there and, job him or anything. I'm asking you to go out there and work an athletic match with him.
You're currently having a match against DJ Durst. What do you think about DJ Durst as a wrestler?
Man, what could have been? That guy had all the potential in the world and just didn't. I don't know if it was just personal demons or just what it was, but that dude, 07, 08, you couldn't touch him. He was so good. And just, like I said, I don't know if it was just personal issues or what, it just caused him to, go the wrong way. And man,
I remember wrestling him in Panama City, and we had an excellent match, and it was a bar show.
Was that WIW?
It was WIW, and
I can't remember if it was that or if it was that other bar that I ran a show at.
We won't bring that bar up.
Yeah.
We couldn't touch the floor in that place.
Yeah. Oh.
So how many more years or matches do you think you have left in you?
Man, if I judged off last year's performance anniversary show, I'd have said that was it. But I was 370 pounds that show. I'm down to about just a little over 300 now. So I don't know, man. I'm feeling better. I feel good. I'm always going to hurt. That's just the way it's going to, 31 years of bumping, you're going to hurt.
Right.
It's never going to heal.
So at least one.
Yeah, man, I got at least one match left in me.
It's like a drug, though. Wrestling is, and it takes a very special type of mindset or person to like really get into this deep, because it's an adrenaline rush, and it's honestly why I switched over to streaming on Twitch. I missed the interaction with people. I missed being able to entertain a crowd, and like that messes with you when you don't do it for a while. Do you agree?
Oh, most definitely, man. That 4-year layoff between 15 and 19, I didn't wrestle. I think I wrestled twice, maybe 3 times in that 4-year span. I just, when I called you from California, I was driving on the road and said, hey, they closed the building in Panama City, and I'm having issues with the building in Mossy Head. I was okay with being done. And it was like a bug. 2 years later, I got the itch again. The bug bit me again, and I wanted to do it. And I had a couple matches and other promotions I won't talk about, but wasn't pleased with them at all. Then I wrestled for Jerry at IPW, and I had a really good match over there, tag team match. It really made me want to get back into doing it again. And then went up and worked with Street Bandit a couple times at his promotion, which is ironically HPW. I made the joke with him already about it. I was like, come on, man. We did the hybrid thing as a gimmick in Mossy Head, and now you're calling your promotion. That's cool. I'm all right with it. I just like bust his chops.
Yeah.
I like Bandit. He's a real good guy.
When he first started talking about starting the promotion, I forget what year it was, but he contacted me, and I was like, I'm all the way in Orlando now. Like, I don't think you can afford me.
Right. I mean, your gas alone just to get up there. I mean, you got to think that's what, 7-hour drive for you?
Exactly. So by myself as well. So I would have had to find guys in the area that he wanted to use and carpool or something, because that's a trek,
It's a hell of a hike. We did it in the 90s, man. We did it every weekend. We'd drive to Miami, to Fort Lauderdale, to wherever, but it'd be 2 or 3 guys with me, and we do it. Man.
And how many kids did you have at that point?
2.
So yeah.
2.
Now I have 5, and I don't know if I can leave all 5 of them for 2 days, pretty much.
Most definitely no. I couldn't. There's no way, man. I can handle the miles of driving and everything, but being away from my kids like that now, even though they're all pretty much grown, I got grandkids now that I'd like to be around, so I want to be closer to home. That's why I came back off the road.
So we'll be wrapping up here in a few minutes. If you have any other questions that you want to ask Mr. Hardcore Jon Ryker, let us know now before we end. So what's the plans? All right, you're itching, I'm itching. When's the next Culture Shock Wrestling show?
Once I get the okay from the building in Mossy Head and the world stops ending with all this COVID crap, man, it's on.
Do you think it's going to be a normal basis, or do you think it's going to be once every 6 months, once a year?
It'll be at least more than once a year.
Okay.
I'll say that. I can't commit to every month right now. I've got too many things going on. I'm opening a new restaurant right now, and I actually oversee another one.
Right.
So I'm just real busy with that. I've got 6 more restaurants to open here in the next 3 years. So I've got to really focus on that. I bought into a franchise here locally.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir.
Who was your favorite opponent, David Sr. wants to know?
Favorite opponent? There's a couple of them. I would say of all time, probably Steve Fury.
Steve Fury, when he was in the right mindset, Steve Fury was one of the best on the Gulf Coast.
Oh man, he got into it he got in business way too late. He was in his mid to late 30s when he started, or almost 40, I think, when he first started. I'll tell you what, that guy had psychology in spades.
Yeah, and that's what matters to me is psychology.
You know, he got sandbagged with the shitty gimmick, you know, in the beginning, doing the Stone Cold ripoff. But I'll tell you what, man, just to be in the ring with that guy, it was like an old shoe. I could put it on, you know, I didn't even have to look at the laces. I didn't even have to look at I just slide the shoe right on. It fit perfectly. We never talked about anything.
Yeah, just went out there and did it.
Just went out there and did our thing. They tell us what we want, who was, you know, who they want to go over, and man, that was all we had. All right, you're over. All right. Well,
and I mean, I lost touch with them, unfortunately, but that's how things were with me and Scotty Ray's. You know, we'd wrestled so many times, and we were just on the same page that it didn't matter where we worked. We could have a great match that was different from any other match we've ever done, and we hardly talked about anything. You know, you just meet those people that you just click with, and
most definitely.
That's pretty awesome. And you and Lane Smart had some awesome matches to where you guys pretty much went out there and didn't really have to talk about stuff too, right?
The biggest thing with Lane was saving Lane from Lane.
Yeah.
Lane, if you'd let him, Lane would just kill himself live for everybody's. He would. I had talked him out of wanting to use a weed whacker before. He's like, you know, I don't want to. I just want to use it. I'm like, no, we're not using weed whacker, Lane. I can't, in good conscience, I cannot do that. I cannot let you use a weed whacker. Come on, you know, no. He was one of my favorite guys, but like, okay, hardcore matches, it would probably be Lane or DJ. Straight up wrestling matches, it would be Fury, even though it was more of a brawl than anything else. But
you know,
Fury and I, man, we just told some great stories. Like our storytelling. I mean, this may be me patting myself on the back or tooting my own horn, but toot. Him and I just told some awesome stories in the ring against each other.
You know, another one that I always enjoyed watching you work with is Omega.
Yeah, Cyrus. He's definitely one of my favorites as well. Like I said, it was hard to narrow it down just to one guy, so I couldn't really say just one guy. But Fury would be my overall of all time, just like best storytelling matches with, and Omega was probably the most fun.
Right. You guys went out there and just walloped each other.
He can go. He can do any style you want him to do. I mean, that's one thing. He could do tags, or he could do he could chain wrestle with you, and that's what I really liked about Omega.
Yeah, very talented in multiple different avenues. So
I prefer to call him Cyrus, and because that's what I've known him as for over 20 years. And
right.
He's we actually didn't start off liking each other. We actually had a run-in in another promotion where they were using my belts in another promotion, and they just threw them on the floor, and I said something to him, and we almost had a real life deal. But thankfully, cooler heads prevailed, and we actually worked another show together for somebody else. And just, I don't know, walked in, we shook hands like I shake hands in any locker room I go in, and we just clicked. He's like, "How you doing?" I was like, "I'm good." And man, it's been that way for over 20 years. We never had a crossword with each other since that time.
So where can people keep up with you and Culture Shock Wrestling? Where can they follow you? Anything like that?
I'm on Twitter at Jon Ryker. I don't really do too much on there right now. CSW still has Facebook page, CSW Wrestling at Facebook. That's about it, man. Once we mainly just follow my name, James Rimmer, at Facebook for information. Once we get things up and going, I'll transfer things over to the Culture Shock Wrestling.
I want to thank you for being the first ever guest on the new show, The Tighe Up. It's going to wrap up tonight's episode. Next week, we have Suicidal Soldier. I did plenty of battles with NCSW. You want to say anything about him before we go?
Man, that's one guy that I wish I would have. Him and I have never wrestled each other.
And you want to go with him.
He wanted to do it. He wanted to do it last year at the anniversary show. He wanted to do it, but I already had my dance card filled with Cyrus, and he's like, man, it's the old guard versus the new guard. And I'm like, yeah, it would be interesting, but man, there's no way I could have gave him the match that he deserved and the crowd deserved at that time.
Maybe that's the next show then.
It possibly could be. And I really appreciate you having me on as the first guest, man. I hope I didn't suck too bad because, it's been a while since I've been in the public domain or talked to anybody in public like this. So I really appreciate it.
Nah, man, it was really fun. Thank you again. We will catch you guys next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the same time on the Tighe Up. Thank you for watching.